Sitting in my chair late at night, watching crime unfold under the pale moonlight. From the darkest corners, stories unfold. True crime jewels, she's brash and she is bold. On the YouTube screen, we're digging deep into the mysteries that never sleep. From missing kids in Tennessee to angry husbands named Barry. True crime's calling and we're taking the time. So grab a seat, don't miss a beat. This True Crime Jewels got what you need.
All right, everybody. So this will not be very long because I'm actually waiting for Kresha and on difficult research. Her mother, Kay Woodcock, who is the biological grandmother of J.J. Vallow and the biological sister of Charles Vallow, she will be going live with Kresha, her daughter, on the YouTube channel Difficult Research here in just minutes. Okay, so I got it on the side where I can see it if it starts. If you go to my channel link, my discussion tab, community tab, go over there. I've got the link for Kresha's channel, and they will be going live any moment. I just finished watching a video that was done today, an impromptu video that was done by Colby Ryan today, the biological brother of Tylee Ryan and the stepson of Charles Vallow. And he is very frustrated. He is dealing with some just crazy rumors that are going around on social media. Something having to do with Tylee, Colby's wedding to his wife that he has now, the mother of his children. And there is apparently some kind of ugly rumor. I'm not even going to try to repeat it and explain it. None of my business. I myself have not heard it, but, I do stay out of a lot of the discussion channels, kind of. So I felt really bad for him because he is quite frustrated. He said that 3 times over the life of his channel, he has had to answer this rumor. His wife has answered to the rumor. It's completely false. And all I'm going to say is Tylee Ryan was at his wedding, and they put out pictures today proving that. So if you hear anybody saying that, just tell them it's not true. Refer them to Scar Wars, which is Colby Ryan's channel, with the correct information that he has pictures. He's showing. It's a bit embarrassing that a family would have to do that. You know what I mean? This, more than anything, is a period of time in his life where he needs to be receiving support and not addressing, I guess, people looking for salacious details, perhaps. But I truly, this case, the case of Shanann Watts, how can you get any more tragic? Like, these 2 cases are just mind-blowing, the level. And I am putting together a series, a series of videos. I considered doing it as a book, and then I said, no, I think I'll go ahead and do it like as a podcast. But I'm putting together a series of videos that it's not going to be retelling Lori's life of crime. It's more about answering the question, what happened? Like, what happened to Lori? How do you go from being an exciting, happy mom to ultimately what she did? Like, how does life lead you down that path? And so the information I'm about, I think there's 9 chapters in all. I think I've got about 3 more to do on my my outline. And the question, the series that I'm doing is going to be pretty heavy in forensic psych or just personality psychology, the psychology of trauma and healing, and it, we try to open up understanding of how a mom like that, a mom who's anxious to raise her children and adopts a special needs kid and builds this family, how does all that get blown up like it did in this particular case, or even in the case of like Chris Watts? He goes from this appearance of this loving, committed dad. We see him on the floor all the time playing with the kids, and then how does it unfold that someone ends in that place? And I do think that there is utility. I think there's worth in that exploration, as long as the discussion about it is one that is educational or informative, right? As long as you're leaning heavily on what is fact, either fact about the crime itself or well researched information, empirically supported theories, things like that. So I'm going to try to do that and finish this up. I mean, I'm working on a long time, and I'll leave it and then I come back to it, leave it, come back to it. So I've got that I'm going to try to get out. And today the video with Colby just sort of, shook me and said, it's time to finish it up and get the information out there, whether it's through a book or it's through a podcast, however I choose to put it out. It's time to get it out there because there needs to be understanding and healing, right? That is important. So very quickly, why do the general public, or we the people, why are we drawn to true crime? I mean, we watch fact-based, real life true crime, but we also watch an enormous amount of Hollywood fictional tales related to crime. And I think that is basically, primal curiosity about human behavior. Psychology is, or what I call psychobabble type of books, self-help books, that kind of thing. They're one of the top selling classes or sections of books in any bookstore, online or real life. People are drawn to not average normal human behavior, but they're drawn to the abnormal, the human behavior that stands outside of what we come to expect in our day-to-day lives. And I think when we run across these stories in the true crime genre, where you get a background and history of the criminals and the victims, and you recognize and see, gosh, this family was exactly like my family. Like what, but for the grace of God, there go I. Like how is it that my family seems to be healthy and okay, and then this other family, like Shanann Watts family, or Colby Ryan and Kay Woodcock, their families experience this devastation that will ripple through this family for generations. This won't end with this one generation of family. It doesn't end with Lori, because the impact that she's had on those people that love the victims and shared time and attention with the victims, it will be a part of their lives, and they will correct and they will heal and they will try to be healthier in their own families of origin. And people will know the story about Grandma Lori or great Grandma Lori. It will kind of reverberate. And I think Colby has got it right. I think he's doing exactly the right thing to do, which is you dedicate real time to good, healthy healing, and then you make sense from it. Make something positive come out of the trauma and tragedy that your family has experienced. So when the darker side of human behavior rears its ugly head, and you find some kind of parallel to that family, or some kind of parallel to that victim, or even possibly even the criminal, um, it kind of causes your brain to expand, and you began to go on this kind of fact seeking, truth seeking um, process. You want to learn all that you can about it to find out, how did that happen to the family, and am I in danger of the same happening to us? In true crime, as compared to a Hollywood fictional tale, true crime, it's real. The stakes are real. The people are real. They had history. They had friendships and connections to these communities. And there will be something that goes forward after the healing begins. So in some ways, people are drawn to these stories because their own fears are being projected onto that family that experienced such devastation. There's also, I've come to learn, so I'm a licensed psychologist, I'm a clinical psychologist. Um, I accidentally ended up with a YouTube channel. Long story, not going to go into it. But I was quite surprised that in the social media or the YouTube true crime genre, so many of us have been the victims of violent crime. It's astounding to me how many people that are regular subscribers. They are very, very active in the side chat. A lot of them are healing from their own losses. They've had children that were murdered, or their husband or wife, or their parents. And you do it when you face this, when you lose people that are important to you, you lose them in a tragic way. It causes your view of the world to change. And you're in search then for any amount of information that might increase your comprehension of what you have experienced and what you have been through, correct? So, so I think there's also a lot of people in true crime watching the trial of Lori Vallow or Dr. Turk or the Adelson family, watching this. Yes, they're watching about the real story that happened to this family, but they know what their loss was. They know what criminal victimization they experienced, and they're looking for information for how to heal. They're looking for information how to move forward and get stronger, not because of the pain they experienced, but in spite of the pain that they experienced. And it's one of the reasons that I think that what Colby Ryan has decided to do with his podcast, which is called Scar Wars, he is trying to now bring some sense and meaning to this nightmare. He wants it to be a place of healing. He's going to be interviewing people and having people on his channel. And I just applaud that. And I think it is a really, really necessary and well needed addition to this whole true crime community on YouTube. There's still a third group of people, I think, that watch true crime, and they, plan for the trials that are coming up. And that is a group of people that are basically just looking for a safe way to kind of explore this issue of justice or morality, or even just trying to face their own fears, maybe about the future, or trying to come to terms with their own mortality, so to speak. There is, for these very extraordinary cases, there is on some level, like I said, this psychological magnet that people are absolutely drawn to the unknown. They're absolutely drawn to abnormal human behavior. And these cases very often have an element of that. How is it possible that you're this beautiful woman? You have lots of it, available family resources, money, houses, cars, vacations, things like that. And there are other things happening to you psychologically that cause you to be the destroyer of your family when you don't have any of those expected kind of background factors, like, living in poverty is a factor that would predispose you to crime. Drug addiction, alcoholism predispose you to crime. Being homeless or being unemployable. There's things that are correlated. It doesn't necessarily mean it causes crime, though sometimes it can, but at least correlated. And when you look at people like Chris Watts or Lori Vallow, you don't see those. You don't see those precursors. They're not really there. And so people get very curious about how Lori could have found herself in the position she's in. I think in the case of Lori, it provides a really, really meaningful, psychologically accurate discussion for personality disorders being sufficient to create a level of chaos that would be synonymous with mental illness. I think there's a lot to learn from Lori. There's a lot to learn from Lori that will reduce the chances that chaos and catastrophe happens again. And so I think it's important to tie that all together and present that information. So the studying criminal behavior, whether academically or just watching YouTube, hidden true crime, that type of channel, watching those types of information to educate yourself, I've not yet reached a place where I feel comfortable, because the conventional wisdom would be, if you're going to talk about forensic psychology, the psychology of criminal behavior, it's got to be done with a level of respect toward the victims. And of course, the goal is to prioritize their dignity and their humanity. Sometimes I think we're doing a disservice to connect the victims to the crime, to the criminal. The victims are not, they didn't cause the crime. The victims didn't do anything to make the criminal act out. The full responsibility of the violence sits squarely on the shoulder of the criminal, period. So I do think that it is important to keep the victims in mind. But I think and perhaps this is the fact that I'm a clinical psychologist and I'm in search of knowledge and understanding, right? I want to know what the precursors were. I want to know what the catalyst was. I want to know what the violent person, what their goals were. I think you have to be really careful including the victim discussion, because the full weight and responsibility lies on the violent criminal, period. So I recognize it is incredibly important. We've got to show dignity to the criminal. To the victims. The victim stories matter. I fully stand by that. But there's a part of me that I'm looking at something that is different. And sometimes, like in the case of a serial killer, They are searching a particular personality style or physical appearance, and then the victimology absolutely must come into play. But in an effort to show dignity to those victims, sometimes for me, and everybody's different, they can do what ethically and morally they are comfortable with. For me, it is not about the victim. The victims matter. The victims matter 100%. But, like, for example, this rumor that Colby is dealing with today about whether Tylee came to the wedding, why are you even having that discussion? Why that a rumor even gets started? Why does that matter? It doesn't matter. Tylee did nothing to contribute to the violence that was shown to she and JJ and Charles and Tammy, and I suspect Joe Ryan. Tylee didn't cause that. Why are you gossiping about Tylee? It has nothing to do. Tylee was entitled to live her life and to establish her own reality. And I think we do a terrible disservice. Melanie Gibb. Oh my God, Melanie Gibb. It's not your place to speak on Tylee and whether Tylee is enjoying her relationship with her stepdad or her mom or anybody else. It's none of your business. And it doesn't have anything at all to do with what Lori and Chad Daybell did. All right. I'm not going to get on my soapbox. So I do think we need to, if we're going to do true crime, we're going to do these true crime videos, we're going to have these discussions on the psychology of criminal behavior and such, or we're just going to comment on trials. I do think that we need to have a purpose, right? There does need to be a reason for why we're doing it, lest we fall into rumor mongering, right? There needs to be a reason. I myself have been, I don't think I've been guilty of rumors. I've tried really hard to be direct in what I was approaching or to say, this is wild speculation. What I'm about to tell you is simply what my brainstorming is leading me to think, but it may not be accurate. Like I said, I don't go to the discussion type channel. I watch Hidden True Crime, but that's another psychologist and a professional journalist. So I feel like that information is really good information from Hidden True Crime. So I think we have to be very careful if we're going to talk about true crime. I think everybody should keep their ethics and morality fully focused and full center as you're determining what you feel like is important to talk about. And I have been guilty myself at times of perhaps seeming insensitive, though it wasn't my intent. I am of the belief that narcissists that commit crimes, they're so they've built themselves up and they feel so special. I think that is very hard for victims of crime to be confronted with an arrogant criminal. And I do think that making fun at their expense is probably a healthy thing to do in the bigger scheme of things. A victim of any crime where you take the person that you look at as sort of the monster and the great destroyer, where their insanity is sort of glorified, right? Like Jeffrey Dahmer, he's been glorified. And in truth, he was just a very, very broken, damaged, mentally ill human being. Nothing about him should ever be glorified. And so I think taking people like Anthony Toddett or Chad Daybell and turning them into a caricature, I think that is healthy. And I think it gives people back a sense of power and control. And if that's the case, then I'm all for it. All right. Okay, so I am now going over to Difficult Research, Kresh's channel, where Kay Woodcock is telling her story on her terms, and I hope you will join me there. It's been great talking to you. Bye.
In the world of crime, there's always more to learn. On the YouTube screen, we're digging deep into the mysteries that never sleep. From Christopher's anger to Stephen Fisher's lies, the truth is calling and justice won't be denied. So grab a seat, don't miss a beat. True crime jewels on the YouTube streets. Lights are low, suspense is high. We're chasing truth, we spot every lie. Step into the darkness, hold on tight. Two flashlights out there in the dead of night. On the YouTube screen, we're digging deep. Barry Morphew's case is high. A boy in Tennessee won't be left behind. From the coldest cases to the ones that shine, true crime's calling and we're taking the time. So grab a seat, don't miss a beat. This true crime jewel's got what you need. We're always watching Barry and waiting for the truth. In the world of crime, we discuss the proof. So hit that play and join the ride on this true crime journey. Join Jewels of Thought and our gemstone family.